when I'm 17 years old and I feel like I'm a gangster, then I got to do gangster shit. When somebody do this, gangsters gonna do this, and so those kind of choices, I ended up in jail. I thought this was expressing liberation in a way, but what I was doing is really falling for the identity trap. Those two things was pretty much how I was able to make that 180-degree shift from the street dude to, somebody who value, healthy discipline, what I call healthy gangster.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It is another week and another episode of the Budo Brothers podcast. We have a very special guest, hip hop icon, and more importantly, from gangster to a guru, we have Khnum Ibomu, also known as Stic from Dead Prez. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Budo Brothers.
Welcome. We are so honored to have you today. Both Kyle and I had just finished reading your book, The 5 Principles, and what really stood out for us and with our experience just in general, working with different martial artists, we found a common thread, a common theme, and they all tell you, focus on the fundamentals. Focus on the basics. Don't worry about the flashy stuff. Focus on those fundamentals. And I feel like after reading your book, you landed on 5 fundamental principles to help anyone on a path to health, inner wealth, and knowledge of self. Now, what I'd love to know is, how did you land on those 5 principles? Of all the principles you could have chosen, what made you land on those 5?
Man, those really just reflecting on my journey over 20 years and what were the keys in the transformation and the longevity of it, and in terms of my well-being practice. And, mindset, always matters. Learning how to not just practice a diet, but listen to your own gut, you know what I mean? In terms of nutrition. How to find your fitness, what is going to be your modality that's going to be something that gives you the goals you want, but also just that you enjoy it and you enjoy the discipline of that modality, right? Learning how to respect rest as an entrepreneur, hip hop artist, a father, a multi-dimensional creative person. Going hard, trying to, train for marathons and you name it, it gets to be a lot. And so learning how to respect rest just as much as we respect going hard. That's something that I on my path. And then looking back on all of that, like what ties it all together over time is being able to stay consistent. And for me, I was like, how was I able to stay consistent in the face of everything else, the temptations of just the hip hop lifestyle and all that? And it was like, I've been able to stay inspired. And when you're inspired, excuses are nothing. But when you're not inspired, any excuse will stop you. So, it was kind of just looking at those fundamentals of how I live and what I think is valuable to other people on their journey. And that's how I arrived at the 5.
Beautiful. Love it. And so for those listening, the 5 principles in the book that he touched on were knowledge, nutrition, exercise, rest, and consistency. Now, one of the things I loved most about the book was how real and raw. I love listening to audiobooks, and like from the first opening thing, you're like, this book isn't for anybody who doesn't like to listen to things in a natural way. Like, and it was like you were speaking to people from the heart and with true authenticity. But as a young man growing up, listening to hip hop, listening to your songs, I just connected to it so much. But could you talk to people about where you came from in the hip hop world and, the types of things you had to overcome to get to this place where you're now helping and coaching people on wellness? Because it almost feels like you were 2 different people. And how did that transformation occur?
Yeah, man. So, I was early on dealing with what millions of young folks, especially in the hoods, dealing with. You dealing with the drug economy that's imposed on our communities in the 80s. You know, I went from being a young kid that wanted to probably go to the military or join the Star Wars or something, you know, to dealing with crack in my household and how that just changed things. And just the stress and the pressure and no real tools. You know, I end up drinking, smoking, and stressing and in the streets and doing all those things. And so much so that at an early age, at 21 years old, I got what's called gout, which is basically I was full of toxins, you know, and to the point where it became like really painful to walk on my left leg. And that was a fork in the road for me to be on medication and you know, go that route or, you know, go a natural route. And to make a long story short, I chose the green pill, so to speak, and went on a journey of changing my diet. Changing that to a plant-based lifestyle at that time, and that gave me so much insight, so much energy, right? And then I actually healed the gout without any medication. So then I had all this energy, and I literally stumbled into a kung fu school in my neighborhood, and that gave, with the energy and with the humility of like, man, I got to do something different. And then being in the martial art lifestyle with the discipline that it required and the choices I had to make, like, do I go party and stay up late? Or do I, you know, I can't go to the dojo high. I can't, you know, so it made me make decisions to place martial arts as more of a priority than the hip hop lifestyle. And those two things, my nutritional change and being a kung fu student and then many other martial arts for a 10-year period was pretty much how I was able to make that 180-degree shift from the street dude to, you know, somebody who value, you know, healthy discipline, what I call healthy gangster. You know, I just shifted that energy from negative things to what I felt like was constructive and going to channel my warrior energy in a positive way.
So going from a hip hop lifestyle where you're probably surrounded by booze, surrounded by drugs, how difficult was it to avoid temptation? And I know just because in general, I mean, you can have a quote unquote healthy relationship with stimulants, but how healthy really is it? And what blocks did you use to prevent going overboard? Because the temptation is there, and temptation's there for all of us. And I think a lot of people, myself included, sometimes it's hard not to give in and have a little too much fun. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What were your rocks to keep you grounded?
Well, at that time, you know, my early 20s, having gout at that early is a wake up call. You know what I'm saying? It's you know, there's in my community, you know, you would see elders, you know, 70, 80 years old at church with swollen ankles and gout. Like, you didn't see that in young people. So for me to be going so hard to have gout at 21 and then dealing with all that pain and I just felt like, man, I don't even got my own back. Like, how am I doing this to myself? You know what I mean? It's enough things against us out here. You know, the choices I'm making, I'm taking myself out from within. So I think that really just woke me up to my responsibility and taking care of myself. Self-defense. Yeah. You know, health is the first self-defense, is the choices you make, right? And but then having the privilege to be in under the training of Sifus and senseis, and those are like the real life Yodas, you know, for this path to kind of say, yeah, I see you're strong, you have this strength, but let's guide it like this. Let's make better choices. Let's have wisdom. So I think a lot of times, especially young men, you know, in the hood, we don't have what we traditionally would have, like rites of passages. where the elders, the uncles, the brothers, they would take the young boys, take you in the bush, teach you how to be a man, teach you how to balance your energy and make good choices and so forth. We don't be having that. So we'll go to gangs, we go to the streets or whatever to try to simulate that. And I think for me, the dojo became that for me. It became a rite of passage, a place that people I respected. I knew my senseis and sipus was badasses, you know what I mean? So I respected their ability to be warriors, but they had this like self-control and they had this wisdom about the bigger picture. And so my rock to resist a lot of the temptations that I would have surely kept going in was that, you know, my senseis gave me a different model to aspire to. You know what I'm saying? They gave me something that I just respected more than I respected being high. You know, is being coherent, being alert, being aware, you know, being a master of your own discipline rather than needing something else as a crutch to kind of escape. So that kept me on the straight and narrow, like I said, for 10 years. After that 10-year period, I also realized, like you're saying, like there is, you have enough discipline to maintain, you know? So then it's like, okay, how do I want to incorporate certain things in a very disciplined way? You know what I'm saying? And I knew with the 10 years, that was my goal, that I proved to myself, you know what I mean? If I want to sip a mimosa or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or even, you know, herb is legal now, you know, a spliff here and there. Yeah. You know, it's like you can do that within, as an adult in a mature, balanced way. You know?
Where it's actually helpful. You know, where you can get into a creative space, where you can relax, where it's not abuse and it's not escapism. And I think
that's the key.
That's the key. Exactly. Yeah.
One thing, I suffer from gout as well, too. I got gout at my late 20s and it hits like a rock. It was at a point where I couldn't even put a blanket on my foot because it hurt so much. And and I went into the doctor, and the first thing that they do is they prescribe meds. Right? Like, take these daily meds, take these to get rid of the pain. And I said no. And I started to figure out that it was the bad, unhealthy meats that were in my diet causing the uric acid. And then two, you also resonate big with the martial arts, right? Martial arts is a vehicle to self-improvement. It's a vehicle to being mindful, to self-development. And a lot of your heroes from the book that you were quoting were some of the ones that I really like too, like Muhammad Ali. But there was one line that I'd love if you could elaborate on, was the Bob Marley quote, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery." And you talking about how you could be in prison and be in prison in your mind. If you could just share with the people how that statement resonated with you and what you spoke about in the book with it.
Yeah, man. So that quote from Bob Marley, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds," from his song War. It just spoke to what I kind of realized as I was going through my mental shifts from the identity that I fell for. Right. Just growing up, and what we learned was the street codes, you know, that's an identity that we identify with as we're trying to find ourselves, find our way, you know, and I realized, I talk about this in the first section of the book in Mindset Matters, how that identity shapes your choices. You know what I'm saying? When I'm 17 years old and I feel like I'm a gangster, then I got to do gangster shit. You know, when somebody do this, gangsters gonna do this. You know, and so those kind of choices, I ended up in jail. You know what I'm saying? And so I thought I was being a rebel. I thought I was being uncontrollable. You know what I mean? I thought this was expressing liberation in a way. But what I was doing is really falling for the identity trap, right? That's so limited on how you can express your power and your strength. And, I was incarcerated even before I was in jail because I was stuck solving all my problems through that one small little box. You know what I'm saying? And once I was able to look around when I was locked up and just assess these as I'm learning and I'm reading and I'm seeing real life examples of the recidivism and just the whole penitentiary pipeline that is in our community, I was able to see like, oh, that is the game itself. That is the box. That is the new slavery. We're chained to the self-destructive program, believing that this is our freedom, right? And so, that resonated a lot. That quote, freeing yourself from mental slavery, is to be able to redefine yourself from a vantage point that is not something that society set up for you to be a pawn, right? But to actually say, well, who am I when I make my priorities the things that matter, the things that really matter to me? Who would I be? And so that's been my journey. Like I said, for me, I realized what I respect about being a G, being a gangster, and all that was really what I thought the strength and the integrity of it, and the camaraderie in a system that is set up and it's unjust. It was the outlaw spirit of it. But I was like, I realized the most gangsters thing you could do is to take care of yourself, to take care of your community, to love yourself, to apply all of that energy towards positive things. That's gangster. And and I've been living that theory and testing it out. And I think I made some decent choices going that route.
One of the aspects that stood out for me in the book is you really started to realize that you can start to fight what you are for instead of what you are against. Can you talk about that mental shift and what that did for you?
Yeah, man. Early on with you see it all in Dead Prez music. Dead Prez became an outlet, at least for me, to channel the frustration, right? The all the different heavy emotions that come with oppressed living, and all these things that we grow up learning that are against us. The different isms, the system, the police, the schools, the courts. All of this stuff, the job market. Just being exploited as a working class person, like all of this stuff that we grew up realizing this is what the system is against you in all these ways. All of my music was channeled towards what I felt like was against me and what I felt like I'm against. And the shift for me was realizing that looking at my body of work with Dead Prez was like, okay, those are important conversations. But yin and yang are balanced. So that's the yang of it, but where's the yin? And the yin for me was like, well, if I'm against this and this is what's against me, well, what's for me and what am I for? And so that was a really eye-opening shift for me, because as I start asking myself that question, like just personally, but then also creatively in my art, like a whole new genre was born out of that. Because if Dead Prez was, here's me, making music for what I'm against and what's against me, this new thing that I eventually called Fit Hop became, this is the music of what I think is for us and what I think we should be for, right? And so the whole healthy gangster rap, healthy gangster rap, right? So yeah, and then I began exploring that, and I feel like in any movement and any revolutionary change, there's certain things that, you do have to destroy, whether it's within you or it's old paradigms or whatever it may be. But then what do you have after you do that? You have to have things that you build within yourself and within, within the community. So, I feel like we need more emphasis on what are the positive things that help us. Like, let's focus on that. So that's what I did with Fit Hop, is created a genre where it was strictly about, these are the things that we're about, that empower us, that give us strength, health, vitality, and going forward with that.
One thing we love too about you is that you're a creator, you're an artist, you're a poet. You give your gift to the world and you share it like an innovator, right? And there's a concept that we talk about regularly on the podcast and to our community, and it's the white belt mentality. We call it San Chin. And we found that deep in your book as well too. Could you explain San Chin through your lens and how you view it?
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, white belt mentality is like fundamental. Your audience will definitely be familiar with, what a black belt is, what a white belt is. But the white belt is the novice, it's the beginner, it's the beginner's mind. And it's the humility to be coachable, to be teachable, to be amenable, right? To be able to grow and to know and to value growth, right? To value what it means to grow. I think if we're talking about, healthy changes, a lot of times the biggest hurdle is in the beginning is your willingness to change. Our willingness to recognize certain things. With people, the health nuts in our family will say, hey, that's not good to do that, or you shouldn't do this and shouldn't do that. And we kind of like, don't tell me, I don't want to know, just let me be in bliss. Doing ignorance is bliss. So a part of just being able to grow is the humility, to be able to learn and realize there's more that we can be doing better. We could be doing things differently. You know what I mean? And I think a good metaphor for that is when you go to a martial arts school and you're brand new, and you might even think you're a badass going in there sometimes, but you quickly realize that humility is the only way you're going to even survive, much less learn in here. And, no matter how bad you think you are, higher skill, right, is going to always, humble you. And so, I try to approach life in general like a white belt, so I can remain a student and just walk with humility, even if I may kind of know something or think I know something. You don't gotta be an asshole with it. There's still room to learn, or maybe a different angle of what you think and it just helps you have more resources and information to make better choices and just to be more solid in whatever you're doing. So that's white belt mentality for me. It's being a student of life.
There's no better way to live. And another thing that really stood out is your articulation, which I really found interesting and powerful, was a mindful response versus unskilled reactions. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, man, that is a Buddhist concept, but it's a universal, wisdom. But in Buddhism, the Buddha talked about skilled and unskilled actions. And, in martial arts, it's a good parallel, right? Because it's not just what you feel, and, emotions are important in delivery of, your expression. But if the skill is not there, the skill is not there. And it's no different with mental things. Like society, in the Instagram of things, all these memes float around and they tell you, they judge and they tell you, you should do this, you should do that. This is bad, this is good. but where's the skills to actually understand your feelings, to actually understand your emotions, and then to have techniques to really practice to move the needle in your consciousness forward enough to make a difference. So I like to always frame it for myself, and when I'm building with other people, is that it's not a judgment. It's a skill set to be able to control your emotions, right? And so if we can, if not, we just react. We just react to whatever emotional triggers that happen. We just react. Who knows what you'll do? And then, and especially if you're a trained martial artist but no emotional control, you're a dangerous weapon. You know what I'm saying? In a lot of ways, to yourself and others. So, but to be able to mindfully respond to things, right, is probably, I think, one of the greatest pieces of Kung Fu. Because if I can say, okay, I'm triggered and I feel certain things, however, I'm going to sit that to the side and I'm going to check in with my wisdom part of myself. And I'm going to say, what's the outcome of this? You know, all of this might happen in a split second. You know what I'm saying? Or you might not have a split second. So you want to be in a state of being where, you know, you're practicing that skill, you practicing mindfulness. So as life is happening, we respect the pause. You know, when we play chess, if I'm sitting across from you and I go and move and that makes you go, well, you know, then, you know, and we keep doing that. We just playing checkers. You know what I'm saying? But when if I go and then you go, oh, okay, I see you trying to trigger. All right, let me stay in my game. Let me stay sharp in my game. And I'm still going to make the wise decisions and take my time and move with a strategy, regardless of what I'm being triggered by. I think that's mindfully responding versus just reacting emotionally to whatever the stimulus is. Yeah.
That's awesome. And you're going through an evolution musically and creatively as well. I wanted to dive in a little bit more about the fit hop, where we're big on learning the creative process. We love to create products and gear and martial arts inspired stuff. How do you create things, like invent new songs and invent these new art forms? Could you talk to us about that?
Yeah, man. I think that's just part of my the inspiration part. Like, you know, I'm like a connoisseur of inspiration. So like for me, it's about, oh, wow, it's a new film that you watch this is going to move you this way. Or what did Bruce Lee say? Like, let me write down the whole interview, you know, like just ways that I could just have different inspiring things. Like my pantry is stocked in things to go to. So since a kid, I've been into that, like knowing what inspires me and staying around it. And so with that being said, you get a lot of creative energy built up because you have all of this inspiration. And you know, and so, or the what they say, the mother of invention, or the mother of necessity is, or what, how's it go? The mother of invention is necessity, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So where you're like, man, like for example, fit hop for me was, we love the energy of hip hop, how strong it is, the power of the bass lines, the 808s, you know, the confidence of the lyricism and all this. But a lot of times the content of the lyrics may not be supporting a positive lifestyle, right? And so there's this conundrum of, you know, when I'm in the gym and I'm trying to push this weight or whatever, I want some strong shit to work with. But I might not want to hear, bitch, hold this, shoot them up, this and that, if I'm trying to, you know, have a positive lifestyle. So for me, I was like, I want to make something that has strength, the strength of hip hop, right? But is, dare I say, is also family friendly. Yeah. Like a 7-year-old or a 70-year-old could listen to this, right? and it don't compromise. We're not trying to make passive sheep just to be positive. You know what I mean? You can still be strong. You can still be a warrior, but you can listen to something that encourages those real values and principles. And that wasn't out here. That didn't exist. So I felt like it gave me the inspiration to see what I could create something to fill some of that void. Could I make songs about being a white belt? Could I make songs about hitting the gym or running, your first marathon? Could I make that my muse? Just the same way a lot of R&B is the muse is love songs, or hip hop the muse is either the streets or the club, and we constantly make songs over and over and over about those scenarios. I'm like, where are the songs about health and fitness as a lifestyle? And so just out of my own practice, out of my own wanting to fill that void, I think, Fit Hop kind of came through that as like a good goal to see, could that work, in the world.
I really appreciate that, because I've been listening to hip hop since forever, right? That's been my genre of choice. And I found as I got older, the lyrics really did stop resonating with me. I'd be listening to it and be like, kill this man dead and shoot him up. And you just like, when you're older, you realize like that's not a productive way to live. Like if you actually did what those songs are saying, you're not going to be in a better place. I actually started listening to reggae more for that, because the voice in reggae is always way more positive. And I really appreciate that you are creating something for people who can still keep the edge and that love of hip hop, but also it promotes a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Working on it. And it matters, man. Like there's so much research that's been done and that's coming out in terms of like how powerful the music is as a frequency, how powerful words that are repeated over and over. The ancient yogis call it mantras. These is affirmations. That's why the chorus, you repeat it, because it's getting seeded, right? And we know from listening to the radio, you don't have to sit down and say, let me try to memorize this. Like the music and the frequency of music works so much inside our brain that we'll pick this stuff up subconsciously and don't even realize it's in there. But when you 16, 17 years old and you picking up certain things and you don't even realize it's in there, and then you find yourself in certain scenarios, those are the kind of ideas and thoughts that come to the surface, because this is the seeds that's being planted. And we don't even realize it. That I know for sure, because that happened to me. Much as I loved Bone Thugs and Harmony and shit like that as a youth, and I don't say this in a way that I feel like artists shouldn't have the right or the freedom to like express their reality and speak their truth, right? And in no way. But just as a young person, just being real about it, some of those conclusions in them records became my philosophy by default. You know what I mean? And it was because a lot of us don't always have that home training to give us proper perspective. So, you know what I'm saying? So we listening to things that just take our natural warrior energy, which is a positive thing, right? But direct it in the most shallow, base, negative way it could come out. And there's high levels to warriorship that are really at the highest level is peaceful. At the highest form of war is peace, is fighting without even having to fight. That is the highest form of all the martial way, is to be at peace in yourself, and therefore everything around you is at peace. But you can take a head off if necessary, and that's what keeps the peace.
Now, in the book, there is a section speaking of the power of frequencies and music. It actually blew my mind. You were referencing a study where there are some folks that decided to really dig into and research the power of music on cheese. Could you talk to that?
Oh yeah. So this was a study done where some scientists had a cheesy idea that they wanted to see the effect of music on the taste and the processing of cheese, of like gourmet cheeses. And so they would play like to one cheese. They took the big blocks of cheese, they put it in this room, and they each block of cheese, they played a different type of music. So like one, they played like classical. One, they played like rock and roll. One, they played there's several other different kind of things. Some they just played a bell frequency, and then this one they played Tribe Called Quest. We got the jazz, right? And they played it for this extended period of time as the cheese is aging. And then they did these blind taste tests with these expert cheese tasting, and and unanimously, right? Which is the interesting thing. Like nobody knew what went on. Just taste the cheese and grade the cheese. And unanimously, all of the experts said the Tribe Called Quest cheese was by far the best in all the notes.
Wow.
Right. So how that energy of that hip hop, that, and they're actually like now there's a whole race to sell cheese based on that experiment, to where they'll, this is cheese that was aged to, Tribe Called Quest or whoever, and market that together. So that's a whole nother thing that's happening. But just shows again that this vibrational thing, of the human voice, the human intention, sound waves, right, is a real technology. And that it can even affect it, like that other life forms respond to it. It's same with water, same with anything. So it's not over the top to realize that the music we make and the things we say have a real effect that matters.
Yeah.
I see a new business opportunity. Dead Prez Fit Hop Cheese. Dude, it's going to be massive. It's the future.
yeah. We got to be vegan cheese though.
Oh yeah, exactly. So I just want we're about to wrap up, and resonance and vibration is so important to us. It's the reason that we're speaking right now. We somehow are resonating on the same way. We reached out, we got in touch. Like, there's nothing that happens that isn't planned from a higher power, right? If you really tune into it, you resonate with certain people, and if you listen to that resonance, it brings amazing things. I wanted to conclude the talk with, if you were talking to your younger self, or maybe somebody who has their white belt mentality on right now, what would you guide them to avoid maybe some of the struggles that you had to, and help them to accelerate and live a healthy, purpose-driven life?
I think if I was talking to myself with what the experience I have now for early teens, I would say do the tough stuff. Embrace the suck. do the things that will make you stronger, sharper, that may not be as comfortable. Get that under your belt as your foundation. Like, I learned this later, in my 20s, why 1,000 kicks is good for you. You know what I'm saying? When you're young, you kind of try to avoid shit like that. Why would I do that when I can just play video games? You know what I'm saying? But learning how to get through those 200 pull-ups or those 1,000 kicks or however many miles, that teaches something that nobody can take from you. that gives you character, that gives you self-respect, it gives you integrity, that no peer group, that no amount of money, that nothing else can take that from you. You gave yourself that. You earned that. And knowing that you have what it takes is the best preparation. And knowing that you're willing to put in the work is the best value that you can bring to life. So I would say, yeah, like look for ways to test your strength, cultivate it, and enjoy that discipline as early as possible.
That's beautiful. And for anyone listening today, we cannot recommend your book enough. The 5 Principles. Pick it up. And especially the audiobook version, because
if you don't like reading, listen. He did an amazing job of reading.
It's well produced, and you get to listen. You are a sensei in this book. You have taken your life lessons, everything that you picked up along the way, the good, the bad, the ugly, and especially the beautiful juice that you've been able to squeeze out of life. There's nuggets of wisdoms that are sprinkled throughout, and we just thank you for putting this work out to the world, because I think it's such a beautiful way to reach a broader audience and bring this mentality of wellness, inner wealth, focusing on yourself to improve yourself so that you can go out and be of service to the world. That's what Budo is, the warrior's way, being able to protect that which you love, yourself, your loved ones, your community, and being that warrior, that purveyor of peace with the ability to uphold it. That's what's so beautiful, and that's what really shined through in your work. So thank you for putting that out.
And for those who are looking for the book, we're going to put it in the show notes so you can click there and go over to it. Anywhere that people should reach out if they want more of you, or where to follow your creations? Can you fill people in on where to find you online?
Yeah, right on, man. I'm on the Instagram app, and just my name, STIC. Yeah, I'm there. I love like interacting and making new community and building. I'm always sharing something, what I'm reading, what I'm eating, where I'm running. Something that I feel like I'm getting some value of. I'm always sharing it. So yeah.
Beautiful. Where can we find some Fit Hop?
Oh, Fit Hop. So I got 2 albums that are dedicated to Fit Hop. Healthy gangster rap, no cursing, family friendly, music to train to and live by. And the first album is called The Workout, and that's under Stic Man. My name. And then the second sequel to that is Workout 2, and that's just under Stic. So those albums are available on wherever digital albums is available, the Workout and Workout 2. And then I executive produced my first artist in the Fit Hop genre is a guy named Coach Khnum, NYM, Coach NYM. He's a jiu-jitsu practitioner. He's a vegan athlete. And a badass MC from the Bronx, and he's a personal trainer. And so it's his debut album, and it's called Healthy Gangster. And it's just more what we do through him being the lead, and I'm kind of supporting. So, yeah.
Beautiful. I just love that you're putting this out there. It is we're just resonating. I'm buzzing right now. I'm ready to go take over the world. So thank you for taking the time out of your day. This was a true honor and a blessing. So we really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man. Much love.
Appreciate it.
And for everybody listening, thank you. And we will see you next week.
Adios.